You close your eyes tonight and imagine a world very different from your own. A world where the sun rose over marble temples and the sea crashed against rocky shores. A world where people believed in gods who lived on mountaintops and spirits who wandered in the dark. This is the world of the ancient Greeks. And in this world there were stories. Stories whispered at night. Stories about the restless dead. You find yourself walking along a dusty path. The air is warm. The sky is turning purple as the sun sets. You can hear the distant sound of waves. You are in ancient Greece, thousands of years ago. The people here live close to the land. They plant olives and grapes. They fish in the sea. They build temples to honor their gods. But they also fear things they cannot see, things that move in the shadows. The ancient Greeks believed that when a person died, their spirit left their body. This spirit was called a shade. The shade would travel to the underworld. The underworld was a dark place beneath the earth. It was ruled by a god. The god's name was Hades. The underworld was not a place of punishment for most people. It was simply where the dead went. A gray, quiet place where shades wandered without purpose. But sometimes a shade did not go to the underworld. Sometimes a shade remained in the world of the living. This happened for many reasons. Perhaps the person died too young. Perhaps they died violently. Perhaps they were not given a proper burial. When a shade stayed behind, it became restless. It wandered, it searched, it could not find peace. You walk further along the path. The sun has set now. The sky is dark. Stars begin to appear. You see a small village ahead. The houses are simple. They are made of stone and mud. There are no electric lights here, only the flicker of oil lamps. You can smell wood smoke. Someone is cooking dinner. You hear the low murmur of voices. In this village, people tell stories. They tell stories about the restless dead. They tell these stories to their children. They tell them to remind each other to be careful, to be respectful, to honor the dead properly, because if you do not, the dead may come back. One story they tell is about a traveler. This traveler was walking home one night. The moon was full. The road was empty. He walked quickly because he wanted to reach his house before it got too late. As he walked, he heard footsteps behind him. He turned around. There was no one there. He kept walking. The footsteps continued. He walked faster. The footsteps walked faster too. Finally, the traveler stopped. He turned around and spoke to the empty road. He said, "Who are you? Why do you follow me?" There was silence. Then a voice answered. It was a soft voice, a sad voice. It said, "I am no one. I was forgotten. I have no name. I have no grave. I walk because I cannot rest." The traveler felt afraid, but he also felt pity. He asked, "What can I do to help you?" The voice said, "Remember me. Tell someone that I existed. That is all I ask." The traveler promised he would. The footsteps stopped. The traveler walked home. He told his family about the voice. He told his neighbors. And in this way the forgotten spirit was remembered. And perhaps it found some peace. You continue walking through the village. You pass a small shrine. It is a simple altar made of stone. There are offerings on it. A bowl of grain. A cup of wine. Some dried flowers. The ancient Greeks left offerings for the dead. They did this to honor them, to keep them happy, to make sure they did not become restless. The Greeks believed that the dead needed things. They needed food and drink. They needed to be remembered. If a family forgot to leave offerings, the dead might become angry. They might return to remind the living of their duties. This was not always a violent return. Sometimes it was just a feeling, a cold breeze in a warm room, a shadow that moved when nothing was there, a dream that felt too real. You find yourself standing at the edge of the village now. Beyond it, there is a cemetery. You can see the markers in the moonlight. They are simple stones. Some have names carved into them. Some do not. You walk closer. The air feels cooler here, quieter. You can hear the wind moving through the olive trees. In ancient Greece, burial was very important. If a person was not buried properly, their shade could not enter the underworld. It would be trapped, stuck between two worlds. The Greeks had rituals for burial. They washed the body, they dressed it in clean clothes, they placed a coin in the mouth. This coin was for Charon, the ferryman. Charon would take the shade across the river that separated the world of the living from the world of the dead. Without the coin, the shade could not cross. There's a story about a young man who died far from home. He died in a battle. His body was left on the field. No one buried him. No one knew who he was. His shade could not cross the river. It wandered near the battlefield. At night, travelers would see a figure, a young man in armor. He would stand by the road. He would watch them pass. He never spoke. He never moved toward them. He just watched, waiting, hoping someone would recognize him, hoping someone would take him home. Years passed. An old woman came to the battlefield. She was looking for her son. He had gone to war and never returned. She searched the field. She found old bones. She found rusted armor. She gathered what she could. She did not know if these were her son's bones, but she buried them anyway. She said prayers. She left offerings. And after that night, the figure by the road was never seen again. You sit down on a stone bench near the cemetery. The night is peaceful. The stars are bright. You think about these stories, about the restless spirits, about why the Greeks feared them. But fear is not quite the right word. It was more like respect, more like understanding. The Greeks knew that death was a part of life. They knew that the dead were still connected to the living, and they knew that both the living and the dead had responsibilities to each other. Another story comes to your mind. This one is about a house, an old house at the edge of a different village. The house had been empty for many years. No one wanted to live there. People said it was haunted. They said that at night you could hear sounds, footsteps, doors opening and closing. Sometimes a figure would appear in the window, a woman in white. The story went that a woman had lived in that house long ago. She had been waiting for her husband to return from the sea. He was a fisherman. One day a storm came. His boat never came back. The woman waited. She stood by the window every day. She watched the sea. She never stopped waiting. Eventually, she died. But her shade remained, still waiting, still watching. One day, a young family moved into the house. They did not believe in ghosts. They thought the stories were just superstition. But on their first night, they heard footsteps. They heard doors creaking. The father got up to investigate. He found nothing. But then he saw her, the woman in white. She was standing by the window, looking out at the sea. The father was not afraid. He felt sad. He understood. He spoke to her. He said, "He is not coming back. You can stop waiting. You can rest now." The woman turned to look at him. Her face was pale. Her eyes were empty. But then, slowly, she nodded. She turned back to the window one last time, and then she faded. Like mist in the morning sun. The house was quiet after that, peaceful. The family lived there happily for many years. You stand up from the bench. You walk back toward the village. The moon is high now. Everything is silver and shadow. You think about what it means to rest, what it means to let go. The ancient Greeks understood that the dead needed closure. They needed to complete their journey. And sometimes the living needed to help them. There were rituals for this. If a shade was troubling a house or a place, the Greeks would perform ceremonies. They would make offerings. They would say prayers. They would call upon the gods for help. Sometimes they would hire a priest or a priestess. These holy people knew the proper words, the proper actions. They could guide a restless shade to where it needed to go. One such ritual involved creating a small grave. Even if the body was lost or far away, a symbolic grave could be made. The family would bury some personal belongings. They would mark the spot with a stone. They would treat it as a real grave. They would visit it, leave offerings, speak to the dead person as if they were there. This gave the shade a place to rest, a place to be remembered. You find yourself in the center of the village now. There is a well here. The well is old. The stones are worn smooth by countless hands. You look down into it. The water is far below. You can see your reflection in the moonlight. The ancient Greeks believed that water was a boundary, a threshold between worlds. Wells, rivers, springs, these were places where the living and the dead could meet. There is a story about a well like this one. In a village much like this one, a child fell into the well and drowned. It was an accident, a terrible tragedy. The child's family was heartbroken. They mourned for a long time. They visited the well often. They left toys and flowers. But soon, strange things began to happen. Other children in the village said they could hear someone calling from the well. A child's voice, asking to be let out, asking to go home. The adults could not hear it. Only the children could. At first, the adults thought the children were imagining things. But the children insisted. They were frightened. The child's mother went to the well one night. She brought a lamp. She called down into the darkness. She said, "My child, you cannot come home. Your body is gone. But your spirit does not have to stay here. You can go where you need to go. We love you. We will always remember you, but you must let go. You must move on." There was silence. Then a cold wind came up from the well. It smelled like earth and water. The lamp flame flickered, and then everything was still. After that night, the children heard no more voices from the well. The mother continued to visit. She continued to leave offerings. But she no longer felt sorrow. She felt peace, and she believed her child felt peace too. You walk away from the well. You pass houses where families are sleeping. You wonder what dreams they have. The ancient Greeks paid attention to dreams. They believed dreams were messages, sometimes from the gods, sometimes from the dead. A dream about a deceased loved one was important. It might mean the dead person had something to say, or needed something, or simply wanted to be remembered. If someone had a troubling dream about the dead, they would take action. They would visit the grave, make an offering, say a prayer. Sometimes they would consult an oracle. Oracles were special people who could communicate with the divine. They could interpret signs and dreams. They could provide guidance on what to do about restless spirits. The most famous oracle was at Delphi. People came from all over Greece to ask questions. They would bring gifts. They would perform sacrifices. Then the oracle would enter a trance. In this state, she would speak. Her words were often mysterious. They needed to be interpreted. But people trusted her wisdom. They followed her advice. There is a story about a man who traveled to Delphi. He was troubled by dreams of his father. His father had died the year before. In the dreams, the father seemed angry. Disappointed. The son did not understand why. He had honored his father. He had given him a proper burial. He had made offerings. What more could he do? The oracle listened to his story. She went into her trance. When she spoke, she said, "A promise was broken. A debt remains unpaid. Until it is settled, there will be no rest." The man was confused. He could not remember breaking any promise. But then he remembered. Years ago, his father had asked him to plant a tree, a special tree from a distant land. The father had given him the seeds, but the man had forgotten. He had been busy. He had put it off, and then his father had died. The man returned home. He found the seeds. They were old now. He was not sure if they would still grow, but he planted them anyway. He watered them. He spoke to them. He told them about his father. And one day, a small green shoot appeared. The tree began to grow. That night the man dreamed of his father again. But this time his father was smiling. He said nothing. He simply smiled and walked away into light. The man never had a troubling dream again. You find yourself leaving the village now. You walk out into the countryside. The land is rocky. There are olive trees and scrubby bushes. In the distance, you can see mountains. Their peaks are dark against the starry sky. You walk slowly. There is no hurry. Time feels different here. Stretched out, endless. The ancient Greeks built their lives around the cycle of seasons. Spring was for planting. Summer was for growing. Fall was for harvest. Winter was for rest. Death was seen as part of this cycle. It was not an ending. It was a transition, a necessary part of the pattern. Just as plants died in winter and returned in spring, the Greeks believed in a kind of continuation after death. But this continuation depended on proper observance. If the rituals were not followed, the cycle could be broken. A shade could become stuck. This was bad not just for the shade, but for the living too. A restless spirit could bring misfortune. Crops might fail. Illness might spread. Children might be born weak. The Greeks saw these as signs that the dead were not at rest. When such misfortunes occurred, the community would act. They would examine their practices. Had anyone been buried improperly? Had any offerings been neglected? Were there any forgotten dead? Sometimes they would hold communal ceremonies. Everyone would participate. They would honor all the dead, known and unknown. They would ask the gods to guide any restless shades to their proper place. You climb a small hill. At the top, there is an ancient stone circle. These stones were placed here long before the time you are imagining. Even the ancient Greeks did not know who put them there. They believed these were sacred places, places where the veil between worlds was thin, places where you could feel the presence of something beyond ordinary life. You sit in the center of the circle. The stones surround you. They are tall and dark. The wind whispers through them. You close your eyes. You breathe slowly. You think about all the people who have sat here before you, all the people who have looked up at these same stars, all the people who have wondered about what comes after death. The ancient Greeks did not claim to know everything about death. They had their beliefs, their stories, their rituals, but they also acknowledged mystery. They knew there were things beyond human understanding. This did not frighten them. It gave them a sense of awe, a sense of respect. They approached the unknown with care and reverence. This is why they feared restless spirits. Not because the spirits were evil or dangerous, but because a restless spirit represented something gone wrong, a broken connection, a failure of duty. It meant that the natural order had been disrupted, and the Greeks believed strongly in order, in balance, in doing things properly. You open your eyes. The stars are so bright here, so many of them. The Greeks saw patterns in the stars, constellations. They told stories about these patterns. Many of the stories involved transformations. A person would die and become a star. Or a god would place someone in the sky to honor them. This was another way the living and the dead remained connected. Even after death, even after becoming a shade in the underworld, a person could be remembered, could be honored, could be kept alive in some way through story and ritual. There is a story about two friends. They grew up together. They were like brothers. They did everything together. They fought side by side in battles. They shared their joys and sorrows. One day, one of them fell ill. The illness was severe. He knew he was dying. He made his friend promise something. He said, "When I am gone, remember me. Tell stories about our adventures. Keep me alive in memory." The friend promised, and when his companion died, he kept that promise. Every night he would sit by the fire and tell stories. He would talk about the things they had done, the places they had seen, the laughter they had shared. He did this for years, long after most people had forgotten his friend's name, long after the friend's family had passed away. He kept telling the stories. One night, as he sat by the fire telling these stories, he fell asleep. He dreamed. In the dream, his friend appeared, but his friend was no longer sad or sick. He was young again, strong, happy. He said, "Thank you. You kept your promise. I have not been forgotten. I have not been lost. Because of you, I have found peace." The old man woke up. He felt a great warmth in his heart. He knew his friend was truly at rest now. And not long after, the old man himself passed away. Some say their shades walk together now in the underworld, still sharing stories, still friends. You stand up from the stone circle. You begin walking again. The night is deep now, the deepest part of night, the time when the world is quietest, when sleep is heaviest. The ancient Greeks called this the hour of spirits. They believed that during this time, the boundary between worlds was thinnest. Shades could move more easily. Dreams were more vivid. Messages could pass through. But this was not a time to fear. It was a time to be respectful, to be aware, to be quiet. If you heard something strange during this hour, you did not investigate carelessly. You listened. You acknowledged. You spoke respectfully. "I hear you," you might say. "I acknowledge your presence. I mean no disrespect. Go in peace." You walk through a grove of trees. The branches create patterns against the sky. The leaves whisper in the breeze. You hear an owl calling. In ancient Greece, owls were associated with wisdom. They were also associated with the goddess Athena, but they were also seen as birds of the night, birds that moved between light and dark. Some believed that owls could see spirits, that they could perceive what humans could not. There is a story about a woman who lived alone in a small house near a forest. Every night an owl would come and perch on her roof. It would call 3 times. The woman did not mind. She found the sound soothing. But one night the owl called more than 3 times. It called many times. It sounded urgent, almost distressed. The woman went outside to see what was wrong. The owl flew from the roof. It circled around her. Then it flew toward the forest. It stopped and looked back at her. It seemed to want her to follow. The woman was curious. She took a lamp and followed the owl into the trees. The owl led her deeper into the forest. Finally, it stopped at an old, overgrown spot. The woman looked down. She could barely see it, but there was a stone, an old grave marker. It was so worn she could not read the name. The woman understood. This grave had been forgotten. No one tended it anymore. No one remembered the person buried here. She felt sad. She cleared away the weeds. She placed stones around the grave to mark it clearly. She said a prayer. She promised to come back and leave offerings. The owl watched her. When she was done, it called 3 times. Then it flew away. After that night, the owl returned to calling only 3 times each evening. The woman kept her promise. She visited the forgotten grave regularly. And she always felt that the owl was watching over both her and the forgotten dead. You emerge from the grove. You are on a coastal path now. You can hear the sea, the waves rolling in and out. The rhythm is steady, constant, eternal. The ancient Greeks lived close to the sea. It provided food. It provided trade routes. But it was also dangerous. Many men died at sea. Their bodies were never recovered. They could not be buried properly. This created a special kind of restlessness. The Greeks performed rituals for those lost at sea. They would build empty tombs, cenotaphs. These were memorials to the missing, a place for the family to mourn, a place to leave offerings. Even though the body was not there, the cenotaph gave the shade a home, a place to return to, a place to be remembered. Sailors were especially careful about honoring the dead. Before a voyage, they would make offerings. They would pour wine into the sea. They would ask for safe passage. They would ask the shades of drowned sailors to look kindly on them, to guide them away from danger. In return, if they saw wreckage or a body in the water, they would attempt to recover it. to give it proper rights. This was a sacred duty. There is a story about a fishing boat. The crew was out early one morning. The sea was calm. The sky was pink with dawn. As they worked their nets, they saw something in the water. At first, they thought it was a seal, but as they drew closer, they saw it was a person, a young man. He was floating face down, clearly dead. The crew pulled him from the water. They did not know who he was. He wore strange clothes. He must have been from a foreign land. They could have simply pushed him back into the sea. No one would have known. But they did not do this. They brought him back to shore. They reported the finding. They helped prepare the body for burial. A funeral was held. The young man was buried in the local cemetery. A simple stone marked his grave. That night, the captain of the fishing boat dreamed. In the dream, the young man appeared. He spoke in a language the captain did not understand. But somehow the captain knew what he was saying. He was saying, "Thank you." He was saying that he had been far from home, lost, alone. But now he had been found. He had been honored. He could rest. The captain woke feeling a deep sense of peace. And that season, the fishing was better than it had been in years. The crew believed the young man's shade had blessed them for their kindness. You stand at the edge of a cliff now. Below you, the sea stretches out forever, dark and vast. You can see the moonlight reflecting on the waves, creating a silver path across the water. The ancient Greeks called the sea the realm of Poseidon, a god of deep power and unpredictable moods. The sea could be calm and generous, or violent and cruel, just like death itself. You think about all the stories you have heard tonight, all the tales of restless spirits and the living who helped them find peace. You realize something. These stories are not really about fear. They are about connection, about responsibility, about the continuation of care beyond the moment of death. The ancient Greeks understood something important. They understood that death does not erase a person, not immediately, not completely. A person lives on in memory, in the marks they made on the world, in the people they loved, in the stories told about them. And this living on requires work. It requires the living to remember, to honor, to maintain the connection. When this work was neglected, a person could be truly lost. Not just their body, but their entire existence. They could fade from memory, become nothing. This was the real death, the final death, and it was this that the Greeks feared most. Not the death of the body, but the death of memory. The complete and utter forgetting. This is why restless spirits appeared, not to harm, not to frighten, but to remind, to say, "I existed, I mattered, do not forget me." And when the living responded with recognition, with honor, with remembrance, the spirit could rest. The connection was maintained. The person, in some essential way, continued to exist. You turn away from the sea. You walk inland. The sky is beginning to change, just barely, the faintest hint of gray in the east. Dawn is still far off, but it is coming. You walk through sleeping fields, past silent farms. Everything is still, peaceful, waiting. You come to a crossroads. In ancient Greece, crossroads were significant places. They were places of decision. Places where paths met, where you could choose your direction. They were also liminal spaces, neither here nor there, both and neither. The goddess Hecate was associated with crossroads. She was a goddess of magic, of boundaries, of thresholds. She was also a goddess who could see ghosts. People would leave offerings at crossroads, especially at night. They would leave food and drink. These were called Hecate's suppers. They were meant for the goddess, but also for wandering spirits. Any shade who was lost or hungry could partake. It was a way of caring for the unknown dead, the forgotten, the abandoned. There is a story about a merchant who traveled frequently. He was always on the roads, going from town to town. He learned to be respectful of crossroads, Every time he came to one, especially at night, he would pause. He would say a short prayer. Sometimes he would leave a small offering if he had one, just a bit of bread, a few drops of wine. Other travelers thought he was foolish. They mocked him for this habit. They said he was wasting time and food on superstition. The merchant did not argue. He simply continued his practice. He felt it was the right thing to do. One night he was traveling alone on a dark road. His cart broke. A wheel came off. He was far from any village. Night was falling. He did not know what to do. He sat down at the side of the road near a crossroads, feeling worried and frustrated. And then he felt a presence. He was not alone. He could not see anyone, but he knew someone was there. He spoke into the darkness. He said, "I do not know who you are, but if you are there, I ask for your help. Or if you cannot help, I ask for your company. I do not wish to be alone tonight." There was a long silence. Then things began to happen. The wheel, which had rolled far away, rolled back. It positioned itself near the axle. Tools that had fallen from the cart arranged themselves neatly. It was as if invisible hands were helping. The merchant watched in wonder. He worked with these invisible helpers. Together they fixed the cart. It took an hour, but it was done. When the work was finished, the merchant said, "Thank you, whoever you are, whatever you are, thank you." He felt a warmth in the air, a sense of satisfaction. And then the presence was gone. The merchant continued on his way. He reached the next village safely, and for the rest of his life, he never failed to honor the crossroads. He told this story to others. And he always said, "What we give to the spirits, they may return tenfold. Kindness is never wasted." You continue walking. You are in a different landscape now, more hilly. There are rocky outcroppings, caves in the hillsides. The ancient Greeks believed that caves were entrances to the underworld, places where the boundary was especially thin. Some caves were considered sacred. Oracles and temples were built near them. People would go to these caves to seek visions, to communicate with the dead. There were rituals for this. You would fast, purify yourself, bring offerings, then you would enter the cave and sit in the darkness. You would wait, sometimes for hours, sometimes for days. You would open yourself to whatever might come. Visions, voices, a sense of presence. Not everyone experienced something, but many did, and they emerged changed, with a new understanding, a message from beyond. There is a story about a young woman whose mother had died. The young woman was grief-stricken. She could not accept the loss. She went to a sacred cave. She brought offerings. She sat in the darkness for 3 days and nights. She did not eat. She barely slept. She waited for some sign, some message from her mother. On the 3rd night she fell into a deep state. Not quite sleep, not quite waking. In this state she sensed her mother. She could not see her clearly, but she felt her presence. She felt love, warmth, and she heard words, not with her ears, with her heart. The words said, "I am not gone. I am changed. I am in a different place, but I am well. You must live. You must be happy. That is what I want for you. That is how you honor me." The young woman woke. Tears streamed down her face, but they were not tears of sorrow. They were tears of relief, of release. She left the cave. She returned to her life. She was still sad sometimes. She still missed her mother. But the crushing grief was gone. She could breathe again. She could smile. She lived a long and full life, and whenever she thought of her mother, she felt not sadness, but gratitude. Gratitude for the time they had shared. Gratitude for the love that continued beyond death. You stand before one of these caves now. The opening is dark. Cool air flows from it. You do not enter. You simply stand at the threshold. You think about thresholds, about boundaries. The ancient Greeks respected boundaries, between life and death, between the world of the living and the world of the dead, between the known and the unknown. They did not try to break down these boundaries. They acknowledged them. They approached them with care. This is part of why they feared restless spirits. A restless spirit represented a boundary violation. Something that should have crossed over had not. Something was out of place, out of order. And order was sacred. Order was what kept the world functioning. What kept society stable. What kept the cosmos in balance. But the Greeks also understood that boundaries could be crossed properly, with respect, with ritual. The dead could be honored by the living. The living could receive wisdom from the dead. Messages could pass through. Guidance could be given, as long as the proper forms were observed, as long as respect was maintained. You walk away from the cave. The sky is definitely lighter now, gray rather than black. The stars are fading. You walk through a field of wild flowers. Even in the dim light you can see their colors: purple, yellow, white. The flowers sway in the breeze. You can smell their fragrance, sweet and gentle. The ancient Greeks loved flowers. They used them in their rituals. They wove them into crowns. They placed them on graves. Different flowers had different meanings. Some represented love. Some represented remembrance. Some represented the fleeting nature of life. A flower blooms beautifully. Then it fades. Then it is gone. Just like human life. But flowers also return. In the spring, the same flowers bloom again. New flowers from the same roots. This was another way the Greeks understood death, as part of a cycle. Not an end, but a transformation. The individual flower dies, but the flower itself, the essence of the flower, returns. So too with humans. The individual body dies, but the spirit continues. And in memory and story, the person blooms again and again. There is a story about a gardener. She tended a beautiful garden. She grew flowers and herbs. She was known for her skill. People came from far to see her garden, but as she grew old, she began to worry. She had no children. No one to pass her knowledge to, no one to tend the garden after she was gone. She feared that when she died, the garden would be neglected. It would become overgrown. All her work would be lost. One day, a young person came to her garden. This young person was quiet and observant. They asked the gardener if they could help. The gardener was pleased. She taught the young person everything she knew, where each plant liked to grow, when to water, when to prune, how to save seeds, how to prepare the soil. The young person learned eagerly. When the old gardener died, the young person took over the garden. They tended it carefully. They used the knowledge the gardener had shared. The garden continued to flourish. It even grew more beautiful. The young person also began teaching others. They passed on what they had learned. And in this way, the old gardener lived on. Not just in the plants she had cultivated, but in the knowledge she had shared, in the tradition she had started. People said they sometimes saw a figure in the garden at dawn, an old woman moving among the flowers, checking on the plants, nodding with satisfaction. The young gardener was never afraid of this. They saw it as a blessing, a sign that the old gardener approved, that her spirit was at peace, that the connection between them continued beyond death. You find yourself on a hilltop now. The view is expansive. You can see for miles in every direction. The land is waking up. The light is growing. Birds are beginning to sing. The world is stirring. But the night has not quite ended. There is a special quality to this time, this transition between dark and light, between sleep and waking, between death and life. The ancient Greeks paid attention to transitions: dawn, dusk, the change of seasons, the moment of birth, the moment of death. These were powerful times, times when boundaries were thin, times when things could shift, change, transform. They approached these times with awareness and reverence. When someone was dying, the family would gather. They would keep vigil. They would not leave the person alone. They would speak to them, hold their hand, sing to them. They wanted the person to know they were loved, that they would be remembered, that their death was witnessed and honored. This made the transition easier, for the dying person and for the family. After death, there would be a period of mourning. This was a time for grief, for tears, for expressing sorrow, but it was also a time for remembering. For telling stories about the deceased, for sharing memories. This served many purposes. It allowed the living to process their grief. It honored the dead, and it kept the dead present, not physically, but in story, in memory, in the continued life of the community. The mourning period eventually ended. There would be a final ceremony, a final offering, a final goodbye. This was important. It marked a transition. The acute grief would soften. The dead person would take their proper place. Not forgotten, but not constantly present either. They would become part of the ancestors, part of the collective memory. They would rest in the underworld, and the living would continue their lives. But this only worked if everything was done properly, if the rituals were observed, if the person was remembered. If their shade was given what it needed to complete its journey. When something was missed, when something was wrong, the shade might remain. Restless, seeking what it needed. You think about what the dead might need. The stories have shown you. They need recognition. They need to be remembered. They need their death to be acknowledged, their life to be honored. They need the living to fulfill any promises made. They need proper burial, proper offerings, proper prayers. They need respect. But they also need something else. They need the living to let them go, to release them, to allow them to move on. Sometimes the living hold on too tightly. Their grief becomes a chain. It binds the dead to the world. It prevents them from resting. This is not intentional. It comes from love. But it is not healthy, not for the living or the dead. There is a story about a father who lost his son. The son was young. His death was sudden. The father could not accept it. He would not remove the son's belongings from his room. He would not speak of his son in the past tense. He acted as if his son might return at any moment. His wife and his other children were worried. They tried to help him, but he refused. At night, the father would hear footsteps, his son's footsteps. He would hear the door to the son's room opening. He would rush to the room, but it would be empty. This happened night after night. The father began to look haunted, exhausted. He could not sleep. He could not eat. He was wasting away. Finally, his wife insisted they consult a priest. The priest came to the house. He listened to the father's story. Then he said something unexpected. He said, "Your son is trying to leave, but he cannot. You are holding him here. Your grief has become a trap. You must let him go." The father was angry. He said, "I will never let him go. He is my son." The priest said gently, "He will always be your son. But he is dead. His place is no longer in this world. By refusing to let him go, you are causing him pain. You are preventing him from finding peace. Is that what you want?" These words struck the father deeply. He realized the truth in them. He did not want his son to suffer. That night he went to his son's room. He spoke aloud. He said, "My son, I love you. I will always love you. But I understand now. You cannot stay. You must go where you need to go. I release you. I give you permission to rest. Be at peace." That night the footsteps came one last time. The door opened, but this time the father did not rush to the room. He stayed in his bed. He listened. He heard the footsteps walk through the house, slowly, as if saying goodbye to each room, each memory. And then they faded. The door closed, and there was silence. A deep, complete silence. The father began to cry, but it was a different kind of crying, a release, a letting go. After that night, the father began to heal. He still grieved, he always would, but he could function again. He could smile. He could honor his son's memory without being consumed by it, and he never heard the footsteps again. He knew his son had found peace, and that gave him peace too. The sun is rising now. You can see it, a sliver of gold on the horizon. The sky is painted in shades of pink and orange and gold. The world is beautiful, new, fresh. The night has ended. But it has not disappeared. It has simply changed, transformed. Just as the dead do not disappear, they change, transform, move to a different place, a different state of being. You walk down from the hilltop. You are heading back toward where you started, the village, the cemetery, the places you walked through in the dark. They look different in the light, less mysterious, more ordinary, but the stories remain. The understanding remains. The ancient Greeks knew something important about death, about life, about the connection between them. They knew that fear comes from not understanding, from not acknowledging, from trying to ignore or deny. But when you face death directly, when you honor it, when you respect it, the fear diminishes. What remains is a kind of sacred awareness, an understanding that life and death are woven together. Two sides of the same cloth. The stories of restless spirits were not meant to terrify. They were meant to teach, to remind people of their responsibilities, to the dead and to each other, to show that kindness and respect matter, that memory matters, that the connections we form in life continue beyond life, that love does not end with death. You pass the cemetery again. In the daylight it looks peaceful. The stones stand quietly, marking lives lived, names remembered. You think about all the shades resting in the underworld, all the people who once walked in this world, who loved and laughed and cried, who worried and hoped and dreamed. They are gone now, but they are not forgotten. As long as someone remembers, as long as someone honors them, they continue in some way. You enter the village, people are waking up, opening shutters, starting fires, beginning their day. They do not know you were here in the night, walking among their stories, learning about their beliefs. But in a way, you have always been here, because these stories are universal. Every culture has its tales of the dead, its rituals, its ways of honoring and remembering. The details differ, but the essence is the same. The need to maintain connection, to honor the dead, to remember. You find yourself at a temple. It is small, built of white stone. There's an altar inside. You enter. The space is cool and quiet, peaceful. This is a place of ritual, of connection, of threshold. Here, the living come to speak to the gods, to make offerings, to seek guidance, but also to honor the dead, to maintain the bonds between the worlds. You stand before the altar. You think about what you would offer, what you would say. The ancient Greeks brought many things: wine, grain, oil, flowers, incense, but the most important offering was not material. It was attention, intention, respect, the act of pausing, of acknowledging, of remembering. This was the true offering, and it cost nothing, but it meant everything. There is a story about a poor woman. She had nothing, no money, no possessions. When her father died, she could not afford a proper funeral. She could not afford offerings. She was ashamed. She thought her father's shade would be angry, would become restless because she had failed him. She went to a priest. She told him her situation. She asked what she should do. The priest thought for a moment. Then he said, "Do you remember your father? Do you think of him with love?" The woman said, "Every day, every moment. He is always in my thoughts." The priest smiled. He said, "Then you are giving him the greatest offering of all. memory, love. These are more valuable than any material thing. Your father's shade knows this. He will rest peacefully." The woman was comforted, but she still wanted to do something. The priest said, "Then do this. Once a month go to a place that was special to your father. Stand there. Think of him. Speak to him in your heart. Tell him you remember. That is enough." The woman did this. Every month she went to a place by the river where her father had liked to fish. She would stand there. She would close her eyes. She would remember, and she would feel a presence, a warmth. She knew her father was with her, that he was at peace, that her love was enough. You leave the temple. You walk through the village square. There is a fountain here. Water flows from a stone basin. Clear and cool. You cup your hands and drink. The water tastes clean, fresh. It reminds you that life continues. The living have needs. They must eat and drink. They must work and rest. They must live their lives. But they must also remember, must honor, must maintain the connections that bind past and present, living and dead. Balance. That is what the ancient Greeks sought, not to obsess over death, not to ignore it either, but to give it its proper place, to acknowledge it, to respect it, to integrate it into life. Death was not the enemy. It was part of the natural order, as natural as birth, as natural as the changing seasons, as natural as night following day. When death was handled properly, it brought not fear, but peace. The dying could let go. The living could grieve and then heal. The dead could rest. The cycle could continue. But when death was mishandled, when it was ignored or disrespected, that is when problems arose. That is when shades became restless. When the living were troubled. When the natural order was disrupted. You sit on the edge of the fountain. The sun is fully up now. The day has begun. You feel the warmth on your skin. You hear the sounds of the village, people talking, children playing, animals making noise, life in all its richness and variety, and underneath it, like a foundation, the understanding that all of this is temporary. All of this will pass, but that does not make it less precious. If anything, it makes it more so. The ancient Greeks understood this. They lived fully. They celebrated life. They competed in games. They created art. They built cities. They told stories. They loved deeply. And they did all of this with the knowledge that death was coming. For everyone. Eventually. But this knowledge did not paralyze them. It motivated them. It made them want to live well, to be remembered, to leave something behind. When you live with an awareness of death, you make different choices. You pay attention to what matters. You say the things that need to be said. You do the things that need to be done. You do not waste time on trivial concerns. You focus on what is essential. Love, connection, meaning, legacy. These are the things that transcend death. These are the things that allow a person to rest peacefully when their time comes. There is a story about two brothers. They were very different. One was serious and contemplative. He spent his time in study and prayer. He prepared for death his entire life. The other was joyful and spontaneous. He loved life. He sang and danced. He seemed never to think about death at all. People assumed the first brother would die peacefully. He was prepared. He was ready. But the second brother, they worried about him. He was not prepared. He would surely struggle when death came. But when the time came for the first brother to die, he was afraid. He had spent so long preparing for death that he had forgotten to live. He had regrets, things he had never done, risks he had never taken, love he had never expressed. His death was difficult, full of sorrow for the life he had not lived. His shade took a long time to find peace. It wandered, filled with longing for experiences never had. The second brother lived a long life, full of joy and adventure. He loved deeply. He laughed often. He made mistakes, but he learned from them. He had sorrows, but he moved through them. When his time came, he was ready. Not because he had prepared for death, but because he had truly lived. He had no regrets. He had loved and been loved. He had experienced the fullness of life. His death was peaceful. His shade moved on easily. It had nothing holding it back. This story taught that preparing for death was not about studying or ritual alone. It was about living well, living fully, living in a way that when death came you could let go without regret. This was true preparation. This was what allowed a shade to rest peacefully. You stand up from the fountain. You walk to the edge of the village. You look back at the houses, the temple, the cemetery, all the places you have walked through this night. You think about all the stories you have heard, all the lessons they contain. The ancient Greeks feared restless spirits not because the spirits themselves were frightening, but because a restless spirit represented failure, a failure to live well, to die well, to honor and remember well. It represented a breakdown in the natural order, and that was what truly frightened them. Not death itself, but disorder, disrespect, forgetting. You turn away from the village. You walk into the countryside. The day is bright now, warm, beautiful. You walk through fields of grain, golden in the sunlight. You can hear insects buzzing, birds singing. The world is alive, vibrant, full of energy and growth. But you carry the night with you, the stories, the understanding, the awareness of what lies beneath the surface of things. There is a path ahead of you. It winds through the landscape. You do not know where it leads, but you follow it. You walk slowly, steadily. There is no hurry. Time stretches out, endless. You pass a shepherd with his flock. He nods to you. You nod back. You pass a farmer working in a field. She looks up and waves. You wave back. These simple exchanges, these small acknowledgments, they matter. They are part of the web of connection that binds the community together. Living to living, living to dead, present to past to future. You come to a crossroads. You pause. You remember the merchant, the offerings left at crossroads. You have nothing to offer, no food, no wine. But you pause anyway. You take a moment. You acknowledge this place, this threshold. You speak quietly. To all those who wander, all those who are lost, all those who are forgotten, I acknowledge you. I remember you. May you find peace. The words feel right. They feel necessary. Even if no one hears them, even if there are no restless spirits here, the act of speaking them matters. It is a recognition, a respect, a maintenance of the connection between the worlds. You feel a stillness after you speak, a sense of completion. Then you choose your path and continue walking. The landscape changes. You are in rockier terrain now. There are fewer trees, more stones. The earth is drier here, but still beautiful in its way. Stark, austere, honest. You climb a rocky hill. At the top, you can see far in every direction. The land stretches out, vast and ancient. This land has seen so much, so many lives, so many deaths, so many stories. You sit on a rock. You close your eyes. You feel the sun on your face, the wind in your hair. You breathe deeply. You think about all the people who have sat in this spot before you, over thousands of years, sitting as you sit now, looking at the same sky, feeling the same sun, wondering the same questions. What happens when we die? Where do we go? Do we continue in some way? These are ancient questions, universal questions. Every person who has ever lived has wondered about them. The ancient Greeks had their answers, their stories, their beliefs. Other cultures had different answers, different stories, different beliefs. But underneath the differences, there are similarities. Almost every culture believes in some kind of continuation after death. some kind of spirit or soul, and almost every culture has rituals for honoring the dead, for maintaining connection, for ensuring the dead find peace and the living can continue. This suggests something important, that these beliefs and practices arise from something deep in human nature, a need to make sense of death, to integrate it into our understanding of life, to maintain bonds with those we love even after they are gone. The specifics may vary, but the need is universal. We are meaning-making creatures. We create stories. We create rituals. We create connections. And we do this even in the face of death, perhaps especially in the face of death. You open your eyes. The sun has moved across the sky. Time has passed. How much, you are not sure. Time feels fluid here, flexible. You stand up. You continue walking. You are descending now, moving into a valley. There is a stream at the bottom. You can hear it before you see it. The sound of water over rocks, a peaceful, constant sound. You reach the stream. The water is clear. You can see the rocks at the bottom, small fish darting between them. You sit beside the stream. You remove your sandals. You put your feet in the water. It is cold, refreshing. You watch the water flow, moving constantly. Never the same water twice, always changing. But the stream remains. This is another way to think about life and death. The individual drops of water come and go. They flow downstream, they disappear, but the stream continues, fed by springs and rain, always flowing, always here. Perhaps we are like that. Individual lives come and go. We are born, we live, we die, we flow downstream and disappear. But humanity continues. The stream of life goes on, and we are part of it. Our individual existence matters. But we are also part of something larger, something that transcends individual life and death, something eternal. This thought is comforting. It places death in a larger context. It makes it less frightening, less final. You are not alone. You are part of a vast flow, and when your time comes to flow downstream, you will still be part of the stream, still connected, still meaningful. There is a story about a very old woman. She was the oldest person in her village. She had seen so much in her long life: birth and death, joy and sorrow, change and constancy. People often asked her if she was afraid of death. She would smile. She would say, "Why should I fear returning to the source? I came from mystery. I will return to mystery. What is there to fear in that?" When her time came, she gathered her family around her. She was peaceful, calm. She held each person's hand. She looked into each face. She said, "Remember me, but do not hold me too tightly. I am ready to go. My time has come. Yours has not. Live well. Love well. And when your time comes, you will understand. There is nothing to fear." And then she closed her eyes. She took a breath, and she was gone. So peacefully, so easily, like falling asleep. Her shade moved on without hesitation, without confusion. She knew where she was going, and she went willingly. You lift your feet from the stream. You dry them on the grass. You put your sandals back on. You stand up. You are aware that your own journey is nearing its end. Not your life journey, but this particular journey, this walk through the world of ancient Greece, this exploration of stories and beliefs about restless spirits and the dead. You can feel it. The sense of completion approaching. You follow the stream. It leads you through the valley. The land is greener here. There are more trees. Olive trees with their silver-green leaves. Fig trees with their large, lobed leaves. Grapevines climbing on wooden frames. This is cultivated land, cared for, tended, a partnership between humans and earth. The land provides, the humans maintain, and in this way, both flourish. You pass through an orchard. The trees are old. Their trunks are twisted and gnarled, but they still bear fruit. still bloom each spring, still provide. There is something deeply reassuring about this, about the continuity of it. These trees were planted long ago by people now dead, but the trees remain, providing for people not yet born when they were planted. A gift across time. This is another way the dead remain connected to the living, through the things they created, the trees they planted, the houses they built, the stories they told, the children they raised, the knowledge they passed on. These things outlive the individual. They become part of the collective inheritance, part of what each generation receives from the past and passes to the future. When you think about it this way, death becomes less absolute. Yes, the body dies. The individual consciousness ends. But so much remains. So much continues. The influence we have, the changes we make, the love we give, the beauty we create. These things ripple out. They affect others. Who affect others? In ways we can never fully know or predict. We are all connected in this vast web, and the web does not break when one thread ends. It adjusts. It continues. It remains strong. You emerge from the orchard. You are approaching the sea again. You can smell it, that particular smell of salt and seaweed and open space. You can hear the waves, that eternal rhythm, that constant song. You walk toward it, drawn by the sound, by the vastness. You reach the shore. The beach is rocky here, not sand, but smooth stones, worn by endless waves. You walk carefully. The stones shift under your feet. You reach the water's edge. The waves roll in. Touch the shore, retreat. Roll in again, over and over, forever. You stand and watch. The sea is so vast. It seems to go on forever, meeting the sky at a distant horizon. You think about all the shades of sailors lost at sea. Do they rest, or do they wander still, searching for home? You hope they rest. You hope they found peace. Perhaps in the cenotaphs their families built, perhaps in the memories and stories, perhaps in the offerings poured into the waves. The sea represents the unknown, the vast mystery beyond life. It is beautiful but indifferent. It gives life and takes it away. It connects lands but also separates them. It is like death in this way, a mystery, a threshold, a transformation. You cannot know what lies beyond, but you can approach it with respect, with awe, with acceptance of your own smallness in the face of vastness. There is a story about a sailor who survived a shipwreck. All his companions drowned. He alone washed up on a shore. He was found. He was saved. He recovered, but he was changed. He had seen death, had touched it, had escaped it by chance. He never went back to the sea. He became a gardener instead. He planted trees, grew flowers, created life and beauty. People asked him why he changed. He said, "I saw the sea take my friends. I saw how quickly life can end, how fragile it is, how precious. I want to spend my remaining time creating, not risking. I want to honor those who died by living well, by making beauty, by tending life." And he did. His gardens were famous. People came from far to see them, and they said that the gardens felt peaceful, sacred, as if they were tended not just by the gardener, but by something more. Some said it was the shades of the drowned sailors, that they had found peace in helping to create beauty, in being part of the gardener's new life, his new purpose. You turn away from the sea. You walk along the shore, following the curve of the coast. The sun is lower now. Afternoon is moving toward evening. The light is golden, warm, beautiful. You realize you have come full circle. You are approaching the village where you started, the place where this journey began, in the night, in the dark, with stories of restless spirits and ancient fears. You enter the village as the sun begins to set. The sky is painted in brilliant colors, orange and pink and purple and gold, the same colors you saw at the beginning, but they feel different now. not like an ending, like a beginning, the cycle completing, preparing to start again, night following day, day following night, forever. You walk through the streets. They are familiar now. You recognize places, the well, the shrine, the temple, the cemetery. Each place holds stories. Each place has meaning. You make your way to the center of the village, to the small square where people gather. There are people there now. Families, friends, neighbors, talking, laughing, sharing the end of the day. You sit on a bench, you watch them. You think about community, about how the living support each other, care for each other, create meaning together, and how this care extends to the dead. The dead are still part of the community, still remembered, still honored, still loved. This is what prevents restlessness. This is what allows peace. An old man sits down beside you. He is weathered. His face is lined with years, but his eyes are bright, kind. He nods to you. You nod back. You sit in comfortable silence for a while. Then he speaks. "Beautiful evening," he says. You agree. It is. He continues. "Evenings like this, I think of my wife. She passed many years ago, but I feel her near me when the light is like this. She loved sunsets." You ask him if he is sad. He considers the question. "Sometimes," he says, "but mostly not. Mostly, I feel grateful. Grateful for the years we had. Grateful that I can still feel her presence. Grateful that she rests peacefully. I did right by her, honored her properly. So I have no regrets, no guilt, just love and gratitude." You sit with his words. They feel true. They feel important. This is the lesson, you think. This is what all the stories have been teaching. Do right by the dead. Honor them. Remember them. But also let them go. Allow them to rest. And in this way, you honor them and free yourself. You maintain connection without becoming trapped. You love without clinging. You remember without being consumed. The old man stands up. He nods to you again. "Good evening," he says. You wish him a good evening as well. He walks away, into the gathering dusk. And you sit, watching the last light fade, watching the stars begin to appear, watching the night return. The village settles into evening. Lamps are lit, shutters are closed, families gather inside, the sounds of cooking, of conversation, of life continuing. You stand up, you walk to the cemetery one last time. The stones are visible in the starlight, silent, patient, marking lives lived, people remembered. You stand among them. You think about all the people resting here, all the shades that have moved on, all the stories that have been told, all the rituals that have been performed, all the love that has been given, all the connections that have been maintained. This is what it means to honor the dead, not with fear, not with elaborate displays, but with simple, consistent acts of remembrance, of respect, of love. You speak quietly. To no one in particular, to everyone who rests here. I remember you. I acknowledge you. May you rest in peace. May your shades find comfort in the underworld. May those who loved you hold you gently in memory. And may we all, when our time comes, find the same peace, the same rest, the same gentle welcome into mystery. The words fade into the night. The stars shine. The world continues. You feel a deep sense of peace, of completion, of understanding. The ancient Greeks feared restless spirits not because death itself was frightening, but because a restless spirit represented something gone wrong, a failure of care, a broken connection, a person lost and forgotten, and this was the true tragedy. Not death, but being forgotten. Not dying, but having lived without meaning or connection. But when a person was loved, remembered, honored. When their death was acknowledged and their life celebrated. When the proper rituals were performed and the proper respect was shown. Then the spirit could rest. The shade could move on. Peace was possible. for the dead and for the living. This was the gift of these rituals, of these beliefs, of these stories. They provided a framework for dealing with death, for integrating it into life, for maintaining the bonds of love and community even across the threshold of death. You leave the cemetery, you walk through the sleeping village, you feel as if you are between worlds yourself now. Not quite here, not quite elsewhere, in a liminal space, a threshold, and this feels right, this feels appropriate, because that is what we all are in a way, between worlds, between past and future, between birth and death, between the known and the unknown. We walk through our lives in this threshold space, and we can fear it, or we can embrace it, we can resist it, or we can accept it. The ancient Greeks chose acceptance. They chose acknowledgement. They chose to live fully while knowing that death was coming, and they chose to honor the dead, to remember them, to maintain connection with them, not out of fear, but out of love, out of respect, out of an understanding that we are all part of something larger than ourselves, something that includes both the living and the dead, both the present and the past, both the seen and the unseen. You find yourself back at the place where you started, the dusty path, the purple sky, the sound of distant waves. But it is different now. You are different. You carry something with you, the stories, the understanding, the peace. You know now that there is nothing to fear in the restless dead, only a call to remember, to honor, to maintain connection, to do right by those who have gone before, and by ourselves, by living well, fully, with awareness and gratitude. The night deepens. The stars shine brighter. You feel sleep calling to you, that gentle pull toward rest, toward release, toward letting go of wakefulness and slipping into dreams. It feels similar to what you have been learning about death. Another threshold, another transition, another letting go, but not frightening, natural, necessary, part of the cycle. You lie down on the soft ground, the earth beneath you, the sky above. You close your eyes. You breathe slowly, deeply. You feel your body relaxing, your mind quieting. The stories you have heard play softly in your thoughts, like a lullaby, like a gentle song. They are not frightening. They are comforting. They speak of connection, of continuity, of peace. You think of all the restless spirits in the stories, and how they found rest, through being remembered, through being honored, through being released, through completing unfinished business, through receiving what they needed, whether it was a proper burial, or a promise fulfilled, or simply an acknowledgement that they had existed, that they had mattered, that they were not forgotten. You think of the living in the stories, how they learned to help the restless dead, through ritual, through offerings, through memory, through letting go, through balance, through living well themselves, so that when their own time came, they could move on peacefully, without regret, without unfinished business, without becoming restless themselves. You drift deeper into relaxation. Your breathing slows, your thoughts become dreamlike, floating, soft. You are aware of the ancient world around you, but also aware of your own world, your own time, your own life. The two blend, because the lessons are timeless. The truths are universal. Death comes to all, and we all must find our way of understanding it, of living with it, of honoring it. The ancient Greeks offer one way. Their stories, their rituals, their beliefs, they are not the only way, but they contain wisdom, they contain truth, they contain something worth considering, worth carrying forward. The idea that the dead are still with us, still deserve our respect, still need our care, and that by caring for them, we care for ourselves. We create a better world. A world where death is not denied or hidden, but acknowledged, integrated, made part of the sacred cycle of life. You feel yourself slipping towards sleep, true sleep, deep and restful. You are not afraid. You welcome it. Like the old man who passed peacefully, ready, accepting, understanding. Sleep is not death, but it is similar. A letting go, a release, a journey to another realm, the realm of dreams, where the boundaries are thin, where the impossible becomes possible, where the dead might visit, where messages might come, where healing might occur. The ancient Greeks honored sleep. They saw it as necessary, sacred, a time when the soul could wander, could restore itself, could receive wisdom. They had a god of sleep, Hypnos. He was gentle, kind. He brought rest to the weary, relief to the suffering, peace to the troubled. His realm was quiet, soft, dark in a comforting way, like being wrapped in a blanket, safe, held. You slip into this realm now, into the soft darkness, into the gentle embrace of sleep. Your last conscious thoughts are of gratitude, for the stories you have heard, for the lessons you have learned, for the peace you have found, for the understanding that death is not an ending, not a terror, but a transformation, a threshold, a return to mystery. And that this mystery is not something to fear, but something to honor, to respect, to approach with awareness and acceptance. And as you sleep, you dream, not of frightening things, not of restless spirits, but of peace, of light, of connection, of love that continues beyond death, of memory that keeps the dead alive in the hearts of the living, of rituals that honor and respect, of a world where both the living and the dead have their proper place, where balance is maintained, where the cycle continues, where all is as it should be. You dream of walking through the village. It is morning. The sun is rising. Everything is new, fresh. You see people you recognize. Some are from the stories. The traveler who heard footsteps, the gardener who tended flowers, the merchant who honored crossroads, the young woman who visited the cave. They nod to you. They smile. They are at peace. They have found their rest, and they are grateful. You dream of standing by the sea. The waves roll in, again and again, eternal, unchanging, but also always changing. Each wave is different, unique, like each life, coming and going, but part of the eternal sea, part of the great whole. You feel the spray on your face, the wind in your hair. And you understand, you are part of this, part of the sea, part of the cycle, part of the eternal flow, and it is good. You dream of the cemetery, but it is not sad. It is peaceful, beautiful even. The stones stand in neat rows. Flowers grow between them. Birds sing in nearby trees. The dead rest here, but they are not gone. They are remembered. They are honored. They are part of the fabric of the living community. And because of this, there is no restlessness, no wandering, no unfinished business, only peace, only rest, only the quiet satisfaction of a life lived and a death honored. You dream of the crossroads, but instead of being a place of decision, it is a place of meeting, the living and the dead, the present and the past, the seen and the unseen. They meet here, not in conflict, in harmony, in balance. Each acknowledging the other, each honoring the other, each giving what is needed. And in this meeting, there is healing, there is connection, there is love that transcends death. Your dreams soften, become less formed, less narrative, more feeling, more essence. You feel peace, deep and complete. You feel connection to all who have lived, to all who will live, to the great cycle of existence. You feel love for those you know, for those you do not, for humanity, for life itself. And you feel gratitude for the gift of existence, for the opportunity to participate, for the chance to learn, to grow, to love, to be. The dreams fade into deep, dreamless sleep, the sleep of complete rest, complete release, complete peace. Your breathing is slow and regular, your body is relaxed, your mind is quiet. You are held in the embrace of sleep, safe, comfortable, at peace, and in this sleep you are restored, healed, prepared for waking, for beginning again, for continuing the journey of life with new understanding, new wisdom, new peace. The night passes, the stars wheel overhead, the world turns, the cycle continues, and you sleep, deeply, peacefully, without fear, without anxiety, without restlessness. You rest as the ancient Greeks hoped their dead would rest, in peace, in comfort, in the gentle embrace of what comes next. And it is good, it is right, it is exactly as it should be. And somewhere, in the world you have been dreaming of, the ancient Greeks continue their lives. They wake with the sun. They tend their fields. They catch their fish. They build their temples. They tell their stories. They honor their gods. They remember their dead. And they live, fully, deeply, with awareness of death, but without fear, without morbid obsession, with balance, with respect, with love. They understand something important, something worth remembering, that life and death are woven together, that we honor life by acknowledging death, that we honor the dead by living well, that connection continues beyond the grave, that love does not end, that memory keeps people alive in a way that matters, that rituals and stories and respect make a difference, that how we die matters, but also how we live, how we love, how we remember, and this understanding brings them peace, not the absence of all fear, but the presence of acceptance, of integration, of balance. They do not seek to conquer death, to deny it, to hide from it. They seek to understand it, to make peace with it, to give it its proper place. And in doing so, they live more fully, more presently, more gratefully, because they know time is limited. They know each day is a gift. They know that what matters is not how long you live, but how well, how fully, how lovingly you continue to sleep, deep in the realm where restoration happens, where the soul renews itself, where the mind processes and integrates, where healing occurs. The ancient Greeks believed sleep was a gift from the gods, a necessary mercy. Without sleep, humans would exhaust themselves, would lose their connection to the divine, would forget the deeper truths. Sleep was the bridge between waking and death, between consciousness and mystery, between doing and being. In your sleep, you are simply being, not doing, not striving, not worrying, not planning, just existing, just breathing, just resting. This is what the dead do, in a way. They simply are, no longer caught up in the struggles of living, no longer burdened by the body's needs, no longer driven by desire or fear, just existing in whatever form they take, in the underworld, in memory, in the stories told about them, in the influence they had on the world. The ancient Greeks did not see the underworld as a place of torment for most people. It was simply the place where shades went. A gray realm, quiet, peaceful, not joyful perhaps, but not painful either. The shades wandered there. They remembered their lives. They existed in a state of reduced vitality, like shadows of their former selves. But they were at peace, as long as they had received proper burial, as long as they were remembered by the living, as long as the rituals were maintained. Only those who had committed terrible crimes, who had offended the gods greatly, suffered punishment in the underworld. For them there were special places, Tartarus, where eternal torment awaited. But these were rare cases. Most people, ordinary people who lived ordinary lives, simply went to the common area of the underworld. They joined the multitudes of shades. They existed quietly. They rested, and this was not seen as a terrible fate. It was simply what came after life. a natural transition. The body returned to the earth, the shade went below, and life continued for those still living. The cycle remained unbroken. The world continued to turn. This was how things were meant to be. This was the natural order. But when someone was not buried properly, their shade could not enter the underworld. It remained above. In the world of the living, displaced, out of place. This was the source of restlessness, not malice, not desire to harm, simply the distress of being where you do not belong, of being unable to complete your journey, of being stuck between states, neither living nor properly dead. It was this in-between state that caused suffering, for the shade and potentially for the living who encountered it. You shift in your sleep, your body adjusts, seeking greater comfort. This is automatic. Unconscious, your body knows what it needs. It makes small adjustments throughout the night, moving, shifting, maintaining circulation, preventing stiffness. This is the wisdom of the body. It cares for itself even when the conscious mind is absent, even when you are deep in sleep and unaware. The ancient Greeks respected the body. They saw it as the vessel for the soul. They trained it, kept it strong and healthy. They competed in athletic games. They honored physical excellence, but they also knew the body was temporary. It would age, weaken, eventually fail. This was inevitable. But while it lasted, it deserved care and respect, because it was the means by which the soul experienced the world. When the body died, it needed to be treated with respect. It needed to be washed, prepared, dressed. This was not just for practical reasons. It was a final act of care, a final honoring of the vessel that had carried the soul through life. The body was then burned or buried, returned to the elements. Earth to earth, ashes to ashes. The body came from the earth. It returned to the earth. This was right, this was natural. But the soul, the shade, did not return to the earth. It went elsewhere, to the underworld, to the realm of Hades, to join the countless other shades, to exist in that gray, quiet space. And this was why burial was so important. It allowed the shade to make this journey, to go where it needed to go, to find its proper place. Without burial, the journey could not be completed. The shade remained displaced, restless, seeking what it needed to move on. Your breathing deepens. You are in the deepest part of sleep now, the part where the body does its most important healing, where growth hormones are released, where memories are consolidated, where the immune system is strengthened, where restoration happens at the cellular level. This is sacred work, invisible work, but essential. Without this deep sleep, health suffers. Mood declines, clarity fades. The body and mind need this time, this deep, complete rest. The ancient Greeks understood rest. They built it into their lives. Midday rest during the hot hours, evening time for family and community, festivals and holidays where work ceased and people gathered. They understood that humans are not machines. They cannot work constantly. They need rhythm. Work and rest, activity and stillness, waking and sleeping. This rhythm was seen as part of the natural order, like the rhythm of day and night, like the rhythm of seasons, like the rhythm of life and death. To violate these rhythms was dangerous. It led to exhaustion, to illness, to imbalance. The Greeks sought balance in all things. Moderation, the middle way. Not too much, not too little. Not excess, not deprivation. Balance. This applied to work and rest, to seriousness and play, to individual and community, to honoring the living and honoring the dead. Balance was the key to a good life, to a healthy life, to a life that could end peacefully, without regret, without creating restlessness. You dream again. Soft, gentle dreams. You are walking through a garden, the one tended by the old gardener in the story. the one where she taught the young person, where her shade was sometimes seen at dawn. You walk among the flowers. They are beautiful, every color, every fragrance. You bend to smell a rose. Its scent is perfect, sweet but not cloying, full but not overwhelming. Perfect balance. You see the old gardener. She is kneeling by a bed of herbs. She is tending them gently. Her hands are sure, practiced. She looks up and sees you. She smiles. "Welcome," she says. "Do you like the garden?" You tell her it is beautiful. She nods. "It takes care," she says. "Constant care, but not anxious care, gentle care, consistent care, like remembering the dead, not obsessive, not fearful, just regular, steady, loving. You understand. This is the lesson. This is what the stories have been teaching. Care for the dead as you would care for a garden, regularly, gently, with love, not with anxiety or fear, not with obsession or excess, just simple, steady, loving care. Remember them. Honor them. Make small offerings. Maintain the connection, but also live your life. Tend your own garden, your own relationships, your own responsibilities. Balance. The gardener stands. She brushes dirt from her hands. The secret, she says, is to know that everything has its season. Planting, growing, blooming, fading, dying, resting, and then beginning again. The cycle continues. We do not mourn the flower that fades in autumn. We know it will return in spring. Not the same flower, but the same essence, the same beauty, the same life force. Death is not an ending. It is a fading, a resting, a preparing for transformation. She walks with you through the garden. She points out different plants. She tells you their stories. This one was planted by her grandmother. This one was a gift from a friend long dead. This one grew from seeds brought from a distant land by a traveler. Each plant has a history, a connection, a story. And in this way the garden is not just plants. It is memory. It is connection. It is the living and the dead woven together. When I die, the old gardener says, this garden will continue. Others will tend it. And I will be here in a way, in the plants I chose, in the design I created, in the knowledge I passed on. This is immortality, not of the body, not of the individual, but of influence, of contribution, of love made manifest in the world. This is what remains. This is what matters. You walk with her to the edge of the garden. Beyond it, you can see the village, the houses, the temple, the cemetery, all the places you have visited. It all connects, the gardener says, the garden and the village, the living and the dead, the past and the present, the seen and the unseen. It is all one fabric, one tapestry. We each add our thread, we weave our pattern, and when we are done, the tapestry continues. Other threads, other patterns, but still the same tapestry. Still beautiful, still meaningful, still sacred. She turns to you. She places her hand on your shoulder. You can feel it. Warm, real, solid. Even though you know she is a shade, even though you know this is a dream, do not fear death, she says. Fear only a life unlived. Fear only love unexpressed. Fear only beauty uncreated. Fear only connection unmade. Live fully. Love deeply. Create generously. Remember faithfully. And when your time comes, you will go peacefully. Your shade will rest easily, and others will remember you as I am remembered. With love, with gratitude, with peace. She steps back. She fades, like mist in sunlight, like smoke in wind. Gone, but not gone. Present in the garden, in the flowers, in the beauty, in the lesson. You stand alone in the garden, but you do not feel alone. You feel connected. To her, to all who have tended this garden, to all who have loved and been loved, to all who have lived and died and been remembered. You feel part of something vast, something eternal, something sacred. The dream shifts. You are in the temple now, the small white stone temple in the village, but it is filled with people. Not just the living. Shades, too. You can tell the difference. The living are solid, colorful. The shades are translucent, silvery. But they are all there together, in the same space, at the same time. And there is no fear, no separation, just a gathering, a communion, the living and the dead together, honoring the gods, honoring each other, being community. A ceremony is taking place. You watch. People are making offerings, placing them on the altar. Grain, wine, flowers, incense. Each person approaches, places their offering, says a prayer, steps back. The living do this. The shades do this too, each honoring the other, each acknowledging the other, each grateful for the other. It is beautiful, moving, sacred. You understand something new. The relationship between living and dead is not one-sided. It is not just the living caring for the dead. The dead care for the living too, in their way, through the wisdom of their experience, through the perspective that comes with having crossed the threshold, through the love that continues beyond death. The dead want the living to thrive, to live well, to find joy, to make meaning. They do not want to be a burden. They want to be a blessing, a resource, a source of wisdom and comfort. When a shade becomes restless, it is often because it cannot give this blessing, cannot complete this role. Something blocks it. Improper burial, broken promises, being forgotten. These things prevent the shade from settling into its proper role as ancestor, as part of the collective wisdom, as part of the support system for the living. Restlessness is not just about the shade's discomfort. It is about the relationship being broken, the flow being interrupted, the balance being disturbed. When the living honor the dead properly, they restore this flow. They allow the dead to bless them, to support them, to be part of their lives in a healthy way. Not haunting, not possessing, not demanding, just present, available, loving, like wise grandparents, like respected elders, like honored teachers, there but not intrusive, supportive but not controlling, loving but not clinging. The ceremony in the temple concludes. People begin to leave. The living walk out into the sunlight. The shades fade, returning to wherever they dwell. But the sense of connection remains, the sense of communion, of unity, of family that extends beyond death. This is what the ancient Greeks created with their rituals, a way for the living and the dead to remain family, to remain community, to remain connected in a healthy, balanced way. Your dream shifts again. You're standing on a hilltop at dawn. The sun is just rising. The light is golden, beautiful, transformative. It touches everything, waking the world, calling forth life. You feel the warmth on your skin. You breathe in the fresh air. You are filled with a sense of possibility, of renewal, of beginning again. This is what each day offers. A new beginning, a chance to start fresh, to do better, to love more, to live fully. The ancient Greeks understood this. They greeted each dawn as a gift. They did not take it for granted. They knew that life was precious, temporary, valuable. Each day was an opportunity. Each moment mattered. This awareness, this consciousness of mortality, made them appreciate life more, not less. When you know something will end, you pay attention to it. You savor it. You engage with it fully. You do not waste it or ignore it. This is the gift that awareness of death gives to the living. It makes life more vivid, more precious, more meaningful. The ancient Greeks understood this. They lived with death in mind. Not morbidly, not fearfully, but realistically. And it made them alive. Truly alive, present, engaged, grateful. The sun rises higher, the golden light spreads across the land. You can see the village below, the fields, the sea, the mountains, all of it illuminated, made visible, made beautiful by the light. You feel a deep sense of peace, of completion, of understanding. This journey through the night, through the stories, through the beliefs of the ancient Greeks has taught you something important, something you will carry with you into waking, into your own life, into your own relationship with death and life and memory and love. You understand now why the ancient Greeks feared restless spirits, not because the spirits themselves were evil or terrifying, but because a restless spirit represented a failure of the living to care for the dead properly, a failure of the dead to live properly, a failure of the community to maintain the sacred bonds that connect past and present, living and dead, individual and collective. The fear was not of ghosts, it was of disconnection, of forgetting, of the breakdown of the sacred order that makes life meaningful and death peaceful. And you understand the solution, the cure for restlessness. It is simple, it is profound. Remember, honor, care, maintain the connection, tell the stories, make the offerings, perform the rituals. But more than that, live well, live fully, live in a way that when your time comes, you can let go without regret, without unfinished business, without becoming restless yourself. Live in a way that makes your death peaceful, your memory a blessing, your influence positive, your legacy loving. This is what the ancient Greeks teach. This is their wisdom, their gift across thousands of years. The dead need the living need the dead. We are all connected in the great web of existence, and when we honor this connection, when we maintain it, when we nurture it, both the living and the dead flourish. Both find peace. Both find meaning. Both find love that transcends death. The sun is fully risen now. The dream is fading. You can feel yourself beginning to wake, beginning to return to your own time, your own place, your own life. But you carry something with you. The stories, the understanding, the peace. You will remember. You will think about these things. You will apply them to your own life, your own relationships, your own approach to death and life and memory. You begin to stir. Your body becomes aware of itself again. You can feel the surface beneath you, the air around you, the subtle sounds of the world. You are returning to waking consciousness, but slowly, gently, like rising from deep water toward the light, like emerging from a cave into dawn, like coming home after a long journey. Your eyes flutter, not quite open yet, but moving, responding to the light. Your breathing changes, becomes more varied, less deep and regular, more like waking breath. Your mind becomes more active. Thoughts begin to form. Memory begins to function. You become aware of yourself as an individual again, separate, distinct, present in a particular time and place. You remember where you are, who you are, what day it is. But you also remember the journey, the night walk through ancient Greece, the stories of restless spirits, the lessons about life and death, the understanding you gained. It feels real, important, true, even though it was a dream, even though it was imagined. The truth it contains is real. The wisdom is valid. The peace is genuine. You open your eyes, slowly. The light is soft, gentle, not harsh or jarring. You blink, focus, orient yourself. You are in your own space, your own time. The world around you is familiar, comfortable, safe, but it feels different somehow, enriched, deepened, as if you have brought something back with you from the journey, as if you have gained something valuable. You lie still for a moment, letting wakefulness settle fully, letting the dream fade into memory, but a memory you will keep, a memory you will treasure, a memory that will inform how you live, how you love, how you think about death, how you honor the dead, how you prepare for your own eventual death. The journey was not just entertainment. It was teaching. It was transformation. It was gift. You sit up slowly. You stretch. Your body is rested, restored. The sleep was deep and good. You feel renewed, ready for the day. But different than before. You carry something new, a perspective, an understanding, a peace. You think about the people in your own life who have died, family, friends, loved ones. You think about them differently now, not with heavy grief, not with desperate longing, but with love, with gratitude, with gentle remembrance, with acknowledgement that they continue in some way, in your memory, in the influence they had on you, in the love you still feel. You think about how you will honor them, not with elaborate rituals, not with expensive monuments, but with simple, consistent remembrance, with living well, with passing on what they taught you, with being the kind of person they would be proud of, with maintaining the connection through love and memory. This is what they need. This is what allows them to rest. This is what keeps them alive in the ways that matter. And you think about your own life, about how you want to live. Knowing that death will come, knowing that your time is limited, knowing that what you do matters, how you love matters, how you treat others matters, what you create matters, what you contribute matters. You want to live in a way that when your time comes, you can let go peacefully, without regret, without restlessness. You want to live fully, deeply, lovingly, so that your death is as peaceful as the death of the old woman in the story, so that your shade rests easily, so that those who remember you feel peace, not guilt, love, not burden, gratitude, not sorrow. This is the gift of the night journey, this understanding, this perspective, this peace. The ancient Greeks feared restless spirits because they understood the importance of doing things properly, of maintaining the sacred bonds, of honoring both life and death. And in learning about their fear, you have learned something about wisdom, about balance, about what makes life meaningful and death peaceful. You stand up. You begin your day. But it is different now. You are different now. You move through your morning routine with greater awareness, greater presence, greater gratitude. You appreciate the simple things, the water on your face, the taste of food, the warmth of sunlight, the sound of birds. These are gifts. These are precious. These will not last forever. So you pay attention. You are present. You are grateful. And as you go about your day, you carry the stories with you. The traveler who was followed by footsteps, the young man whose father needed a tree planted, the child in the well, the woman waiting at the window, the merchant at the crossroads, the forgotten grave found by the owl. The sailor's body recovered, the old woman who died peacefully, the gardener and her garden. Each story a lesson, each story a truth, each story a gift from the ancient Greeks across thousands of years. You understand now that these stories are not just about ancient people in an ancient land. They are about universal human experiences, universal human needs, universal human truths, the need to be remembered, the need to belong, the need for closure, the need for meaning, the need for connection. These needs do not change. They are the same now as they were thousands of years ago. They will be the same thousands of years from now, because they are part of what it means to be human, and the solutions the ancient Greeks found are still valid, still valuable, still wise. Remember the dead, honor them, but also let them go. Live fully. Love deeply. Do what needs to be done. Keep your promises. Maintain your connections. Respect the boundaries between life and death. Accept death as natural. Prepare for it by living well. And know that when your time comes, if you have done these things, you will rest peacefully. Your shade will not be restless. Your memory will be a blessing. Your influence will continue. This is the wisdom. This is the teaching. This is what the ancient Greeks understood and what their stories about restless spirits teach us still. Fear is not the point. Control is not the goal. Understanding is what matters. Acceptance is what brings peace. Living well is what honors the dead and prepares us for death. Love is what continues beyond the grave. Memory is what keeps people alive in the ways that matter. And connection is what makes life meaningful and death bearable. As the day unfolds, you find yourself thinking about these things, not obsessively, not morbidly, but naturally, easily. They have become part of how you see the world, part of how you understand life, part of how you approach death. And this feels right. This feels healthy. This feels balanced. You are not denying death. You are not obsessed with it. You are simply aware of it, accepting of it, prepared for it by living well, by loving fully, by being present, by making meaning, by creating connection. This is what it means to have integrated the lesson of the restless spirits, not to fear them, but to understand what they represent, what they teach, what they ask of us. They ask us to remember, to honor, to maintain connection, to live well, to love fully. To let go when the time comes, to rest when our work is done, to trust that we will be remembered, that we will continue in some way, that death is not the end of meaning or love or connection, just a transformation, a threshold, a change of state. And with this understanding comes peace, deep peace, not the absence of all sorrow or fear, but the presence of acceptance, of trust, of faith in the continuing cycle of life and death, of confidence that if you do your part, if you live well and honor the dead and maintain the connections, then all will be well. Your life will have meaning. Your death will be peaceful. Your memory will be a blessing. Your shade will rest easily. And those you love will feel not guilt but gratitude when they think of you. This is the gift of the journey through the night. Through the world of the ancient Greeks. Through the stories of restless spirits and how they found peace. This understanding, this wisdom, this peace. It is a gift you will carry with you, today, tomorrow, for the rest of your life, until your own time comes to cross the threshold, to become a shade, to rest in whatever realm awaits. And when that time comes, you will be ready, because you have learned, you have understood, you have lived well, you have loved fully, you have maintained the connections, you have honored the dead and prepared yourself for death. And so the night journey ends. The stories are told, the lessons are learned, the peace is found. You are awake now, fully, completely, present in your own time and place, but carrying something from the ancient past, something timeless, something true. Something that will help you live better, die better, remember better, love better, be better. The ancient Greeks feared restless spirits, but they also knew how to bring them peace, how to help them rest, how to honor them properly, and in doing so, they learned how to live well themselves. How to approach death with acceptance rather than terror, how to maintain the sacred bonds that connect past and present, living and dead, individual and community. This is their gift to us, across thousands of years, through the stories, through the rituals, through the wisdom, and now it is your gift too, to carry forward, to live by, to pass on. The journey has ended, but the understanding continues. The peace remains. The connection endures. And when night comes again, when sleep calls you back to dreams and rest, you will go peacefully. Without fear, without anxiety, knowing that you are part of something larger, something eternal, something sacred, the great cycle of life and death, the eternal dance of existence, the sacred mystery that holds us all. Rest now. Be at peace. The stories have been told. The lessons have been learned. The ancient Greeks and their restless spirits have taught you well. Carry this wisdom gently. Live it quietly. Share it generously. And know that you are connected to all who have gone before and all who will come after. You are part of the eternal human family, the living and the dead together. And that is a beautiful thing, a sacred thing, a thing worth honoring, worth celebrating, worth living for. May you rest as peacefully as the shades who found their way home. May you live as fully as those who knew death was coming. May you love as deeply as those whose love transcended death. May you remember and be remembered with gratitude and peace. This is the blessing of the ancient Greeks. This is the gift of the restless spirits. This is the wisdom of the ages. And now it is yours. Sleep well, live well, love well, remember well, and when your time comes, may you rest well too, in peace, in comfort, in the knowledge that you lived a good life, that you loved and were loved, that you will be remembered, that your shade will rest easily, that your memory will be a blessing, that your influence will continue, that you are part of something eternal, something sacred, something beautiful beyond words. This is the end of the journey. This is the completion of the night. This is the fullness of the understanding. The ancient Greeks feared restless spirits because they cared about doing things properly, about maintaining sacred bonds, about honoring life and death equally, and in their fear they found wisdom. In their rituals they found peace. In their stories they found truth. And now, through them, so have you. May you carry this peace with you always. May it comfort you in sorrow, strengthen you in fear, guide you in confusion, and prepare you for that inevitable day when you too will cross the threshold, when you too will become a shade, when you too will depend on the living to remember you, to honor you, to release you. May you have lived so well that this transition is easy, natural, peaceful. May your shade rest from the first moment. May those who remember you feel joy, not burden. May your influence continue to bless the world. May you truly rest in peace. The night is over. The dawn has come. The journey is complete. The ancient Greeks and their restless spirits have shared their wisdom, and you have received it. Gratefully, humbly, peacefully. May it serve you well. May it guide you truly. May it bring you peace all the days of your life. And may you, in turn, pass it on to others who seek understanding, who fear death, who wonder about the restless dead. Share this wisdom, share this peace, share this understanding, and in doing so, honor the ancient Greeks who understood these mysteries so long ago, who shared them through stories, who passed them down through generations, until they reached you. Here, now, tonight. Sleep well. Rest deeply, wake gently, live fully. This is the blessing. This is the gift. This is the end and the beginning. The completion and the continuation. The ancient wisdom made new again, made yours, made alive in you, to carry forward, to live by, to share, to pass on, until you too become part of the ancient past, part of the collective memory, part of the web of connection that binds all humanity across all time, living and dead, past and present, remembered and remembering, forever.